Hello and welcome to the recap. So this week, which is week 2, I'm going to do this recap in, I think it's going to be 2 halves. So you're going to have this section, which is the digital presentation, and then we're going to move over to a video presentation where I'm going to demonstrate some practical. So I'll leave the links, both of them on Moodle. You can watch them both in your own time. So to start the recap, the plan of what we did on Wednesday, we had a little bit of sketchbook presentation, and we started looking at utility stitches and utility seams, and then we followed on after our conversation, our group discussion, or me presenting to you, however you want to look at it. We followed that through with some practical demonstration, and the practical demonstration is what you'll be able to see in section 2 of the recap. So the first thing that we talked about was how are we going to lay this sketchbook out? So we've all been given this sketchbook, or rather you guys have been given this sketchbook. How do you go about laying this out so that it is organized and that you are able to present it or hand it in for marking after each unit, also for the internal verification. And the idea with the sketchbook is that it's going to tell a story. The story begins with you guys learning to use your sewing machine, even if you've already got experience. We talked about the fact that we all start from the same point and we will work together as one team to achieve this project that we're going to make in Unit 3. So on the inside cover of your sketchbook, being the left inside cover of your sketchbook, I always advise that you put some kind of paper, card, wallet in there, or you could use I showed some plastic poly pockets, which you could use to stick in there. But the reason that we have this document, this card document in there, is really because you're going to have lots of things on the inside cover, so you have to have your candidate pack, any health and safety contracts that you sign. You will also have the unit 1 timetable, which is the syllabus, tells you roughly what we're going to cover throughout the sessions, any evidence checklists, which we give you this week, any feedback work. It ends up where it's quite a meaty section. There's lots of things, and we have to have them in one place so that they are easy for the internal and the external verifiers to be able to find when they cross-check your folders towards the end of the course. On the opposite side, as you can see here in my little slide, so I did ask one of the other learners if I was able to share this. So I have been given access to be able to share these sketchbook sheets with you, these sketchbook pages, so that you're able to see, give you an idea on the layout. So on the opposite page, week 4, we're going to make a health and safety poster. So week 4, we are going to have some one-to-ones, and part of that is going to be, we're going to collect sample, we're going to collect some images, and we're going to create this health and safety poster. The purpose of the poster is to show that you have a really good awareness of working safely, not just for yourself, but also for everybody else who works around you. We talked about being kind to other people, being understanding, and also making sure that we are working safely for others and for ourselves, as we said. So in week 1, just a little bit of a backtrack. In week 1, I asked you to make a poster-like page to collect some images, and that would be based around the tools, the equipment that you will use in the sewing workroom. These things will be, if you've got a sewing machine, that will be one object that you would have. So you would put your sewing machine in the center of the table, as we can see has been shared here in this slide. And the learner here has added sewing machine, she's added scissors, she might have added the needle products, she'll have added cotton, the cotton reel, the bobbins, ruler, pencils, anything that you would use when you're sewing. That's what she's done here. And what she's also done is she has labelled. So she's numbered each item and she's added arrows to label each item. And then down in one column, she has referenced what each of the numbers relate to with the labels. So this is one way to be able to do it. Last week, you had the option that you could have used Canva. I showed you how to use Canva. I also showed you how to log into the computer, how to use the snipping tool to be able to snip an item. If you were doing a Google search, for example, you would do the Google search, you would snip the item, and then you would store it onto a Word document for printing later. We showed you that. We also showed you how to use Canva, which is free software, and how to use it to be able to gather some ideas, and those ideas could be in the form of digital graphics. So it was a couple of different options on how you might want to present this. On the opposite side of my slide, you can see that we have some examples. So one of these examples relates to week 1 for my previous year, and what the learner has done, she has stuck in her stitch sample sheet. She's also labelled that as well because she has had a look at some of the stitches. She's labelled the stitches so that she's got a reference there. And at the top, she's also made a French seam. So she's labelled the French seam so you can clearly see what the seam is. And then she has added a little bit of notes to say how to make the steps of the French seam. And what you will also notice on all of them, she's added some safety references. So we just ask you to put a little health and safety reference on each page, especially in Unit 1. And those will be common things that you will think about, that you're going to be mindful of when you are sewing in the workroom. And the one thing that we did do is we all went around and shared one health and safety hazard to show our awareness of that we need to consider. So that might be that we have the sewing machine switched off when we're making changes or when we're removing the needle. We're going to have the sewing machine switched off at the plug at the mains for safety. And also, when we do take an old needle out, we're going to put it in the we're going to put it in the sharps bin. I think there's too many things going around in my brain. So yeah, if you take the needle out your machine, just to be safe, you're going to put it in the sharps bin. Which you're thinking about safety there. And not put pins in your mouth. We went round and we all gave a health and safety reference as a starting point to be able to start us off. So one of the questions that was asked, which rightly, you're going to wonder, what things do I need to bring with me? So I did say, if you don't want to bring your sketchbook every week, that's not a problem. As long as you can bring it for week 4, for the one-to-one, because I need to be able to see where you're up to. And I do understand if you're bringing your sewing machines with you, and especially if you're not driving, carrying the sketchbook, sewing machine tools, you've got all your sewing box with all your bits and pieces in, it can be quite heavy. So like I say, happy if you don't want to bring that sketchbook, or if you would like me to save them, I'm quite happy to save them on site for you as well. That's your sketchbooks, that is. I know we've got space to be able to do that, and it's not a problem. If that helps you out, bear in mind, though, you will need to be able to stick your samples in. And whilst we talk about sticking our samples in, the other question that was asked, what glues should we use? Just use a cheap PVA glue. That's all I use, to stick my samples into my sketchbook. I use one that's usually like purple and it dries clear. I always find that's quite helpful. Other things that you might want to do labelling. You can collect yourself some colour pencils, however you see fit to be able to put the samples in, that's fine. All I ask is that you are organised with the pages so that you know exactly where everything is. And we also talked about taking notes, which is critical, and we'll come on to that later. So how do we collect this evidence? We know that Unit 1 is about exploring tools and resources to gain basic skills, and these skills, we're going to use them when we start doing our design development. But basically, it's about developing skills. How do we collect this evidence? So we have at the top, it says the learner can, and we've got 5 pieces of evidence that we have to show to be able to pass Unit 1. And what I do is I tailor each of the classes to make sure that the topics that you cover in the class will show that evidence that you're going to need to demonstrate to pass Unit 1. At the bottom of the sheet, I've got 3 columns, and I'm not going to read them out as I didn't do in the class. I did say feel free to read them in your own time. But the first column looks at the type of evidence. So, for example, it might well be a practical sample, you making the samples, which you did yesterday, a description of what the sample is, and ideas on good practice tips. So, it would be about labeling that sample with the name of the sample and also the purpose. And actually, what might be helpful is if you add the steps as well, to make the sample. And it's also nice to think about the reflection, because it's so nice to be able to look back on your work and think, you know what, that didn't work, but I understand why it didn't work. And then we made an alternative sample. So we made a French seam in a lightweight fabric. We also made it in a heavier weight fabric. It was nice that you could compare the differences, and we had that discussion of that's what this course is about, being able to understand, develop those skills, and be able to compare and analyze the comparison so that you're understanding and you're able to answer those questions for yourself, because curiosity is so important in these classes. The final thing we sort of talked about was a recap of downloading Moodle. So this instance, we've got the Moodle app here. We also have the Moodle web address, and I've made a little video that shows you how to download Moodle from the App Store, how to put the web address in, what you need to put in, and also the basic password, which should be capital C, change me one, and then you will be prompted to add your own secure password. I have left this slide up because it is an alternative if you decide that you want to use Moodle on your PC, and CALM stands for Cornwall Adult Learners Moodle. So you can download it on the App Store, but you can also use it via your laptop or PC. The final slide is a reminder of some of the previous cohort skirts that they have made, and we've got those for a little bit of inspiration. And what we will do is we will end this half of the presentation, and we will continue it with some video work where we will start looking at the stitches and the seams that we made in class. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you over for part 2.